Okay, so let me just frame this, and then we will break up into chavrusas for at least a little bit. Okay. So I guess at this point it's a few months ago already. We did the issues of choosing the sex of a child and of CRISPR, and I noted at the time that these are part of a broad set of halachic questions that have that in the literature become like these playing God questions. And we noted, especially in those topics, that the hard halachic data is often very minimal in terms of what you're talking about. And a lot of the relevant halachic issues are more meta halachic, hashkafic, maybe touch on halachic issues, right? Like in the choosing the gender of the sex of the child. There's that, there are like some ancillary halachic issues, like if you're using IVF, then you're dealing with the question of Hotzeet Zer Levatala, so you need to justify it maybe halachically and hashkafically, so it's not considered for no reason or something like that. But directly speaking, the act of the godlike act is more of a hashkafic problem, and trying to pin down a firm halachic basis for the prohibition is a little bit more murky. That changes in one of the issues, and that's the one we'll look at today, which is the question of genetically engineered foods, whether that be animals or that be plants. And as I just put here, right, this when you see on foods like no GMO or yes GMO, there are different things that they mean. There are different things that we can do. There are different things that, for example, we'll, as I gave you a little summary here, sometimes we insert genes from animals into plants. So we, for example, one genetically modified species of tomato has certain genes from, I think it's a salmon maybe, or an eel. I don't remember exactly. It's something that makes it resistant to cold.
There's also a kind of bacteria that people have modified to basically produce vanilla extract because it's really hard to get vanilla beans.
Have they really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, because of the worldwide vanilla shortage, because of the blight in Madagascar. Yeah. Yes, so I've heard a lot about this. Ura has not been happy for several years.
So it is synthetic vanilla, but it still tastes exactly the way.
Right, meaning it's not.
Yeah, so it's genetically very similar.
But genetically it's similar, but it's not exactly. Cool. I didn't know that. That is cool. I watched as the vanilla prices rose and rose and rose and rose and rose. So we just we stocked up on a few of those Costco vanillas like this big.
Whenever my ankles pass, we go.
Yeah, my mother-in-law brings from Costco. Okay, but so one thing we can do is we can insert, let's say, animal genes into plants. Or we change the genomes to propagate certain traits in plants and animals, and we do different things, whether it to be bacteria resistant to cold, whatever we do. We do a lot of things with genetic modification. There is a big dispute. There are many people who think that it's unhealthy, and that's why you'll see non-GMO, or they think it's unethical. The scientific evidence is very, very thin on claiming that it's not healthy. Obviously there could be genetic modifications that are unhealthy, right? One could do that. You could, but the fact that it was genetically modified itself, there's very little evidence that itself makes it unhealthy. You could do a modification that would make it unhealthy, right? If you modified an animal so that it produced more fat to muscle, and then it was a fattier animal that you then ate, presumably it would be unhealthy, but that's because of the fat. That's not because of the genetic modification per se. Now here, so you do have the meta question. Is this problematic of playing God? But here, you also have at least more room to talk about firm halachic questions, because here we're already dealing with something which is close to, or potentially close to, and that's really the question we need to deal with, something like crossbreeding, which is a prohibition. right? Which is a prohibition. You cannot crossbreed. You can't take an animal, you can't take a horse and a donkey and crossbreed them to create a mule. That is not mutter. And therefore, the question becomes, is this where I'm taking genetic material and I'm inserting it from one, right? If I'm just modifying it without inserting external material, so then presumably you're just in the meta questions. But what if you're actually inserting genetic material from another species? Is that a problem of kilayim? Right now we're dealing with potential halachic issues. That's one set of halachic issues. The other set of halachic issues that come up is the following. Let's say you have a fish. It is a salmon. Salmon is a kosher species. But you genetically modify it so that it does not have fins, or it does not have scales, or it doesn't have fins or scales. So now you've got to figure out, is it kosher? Because the Torah said that fish are only kosher if they have fins and scales. What did it mean by that? Did it mean that it actually needs to have fins and scales? Or does it mean that the species which have fins and scales are kosher, even if this particular salmon doesn't have fins and scales? Or are we even talking about salmon? And vice versa. Let's say you gave a pig, or you made a pig chew its cud. However you would do that, right? You presumably would need more stomachs and stuff like that. Yeah.
What would be the halacha in a situation where you had a salmon that was just like born without it? Like,
So that would be the same shaila, right? The same shaila would come in a weird case like that. Now, presumably not like if you cut it off, right? Like if it,
Right,
but like,
but like
if it had like a genetic aberration, yeah, presumably that would be the same halachic question. So this is the second set of questions that have been asked with GMO: is what happens when we've changed an animal so much? And you can ask this by animals, you can ask this by fish, and you can ask this by birds, and it's going to be different by birds and not by birds. By animals and fish, the Torah gives you simanim. Chews its cud and has split hooves, and fish and fins and scales. By birds, you just get a list. So the answer might be different, because you could say one answer by animals and fish where you're talking about simanim, maybe simanim are important, but by birds, maybe it's about species because we only have a list. You could say the opposite, right? You could say that maybe by birds, because it is a species, modifying it makes it not that species, but by other things, right, even if you modify them, as long as they still have the simanim, it's fine. So the secondary question is, at what point have I changed an animal so much that it is not kosher? And that question is, what is the standard we're talking about? What makes it kosher? The fact that it's part of a particular species, the fact that it has certain simanim, and the like. So those are, So those are two of the main halachic concerns that come up here. There are some ancillary ones which we're not going to get into. We're going to focus on those two questions. At the very end, I gave you on 37 just a summary of two other issues that people bring up. So let me just get them on the table now, and then we'll break them into chavrus over the two main halachic issues. Maybe we'll do it in two parts. One, as I mentioned, is the health question. There is a general mitzvah, prohibition, a bit of a complicated how do you pin it down, but some sort of Torah value in keeping ourselves healthy. As I said, the jury is out, though most of the evidence that we have is that GMO is not particularly unhealthy. The fact that it's GMO, it could be that more evidence will come up in the opposite direction, but there are people who are very convinced that it must be unhealthy with or without evidence, because, this is unnatural, so it must be. If it turns out it's unhealthy, so then you'll have to deal with that concern, right? That is true. But we're not going to deal with it because that is really a different question, and it's really a scientific question. The halacha is pretty clear on that. The value of maintaining health is a separate question. Yeah.
Sugar is so unhealthy, and it's I don't
Correct. So this is, like I said, this is part of a broader question of what does it mean that you're chayav to keep yourself healthy? Does that mean you can never eat anything unhealthy? Does that mean you have to maintain a healthy lifestyle? But that doesn't mean you can't have unhealthy things along the way. Is this a biblical mitzvah? Is it derived from logic? Does it depend about whether you're keeping yourself healthy or putting yourself in active danger, which seems to be the Rambam. The Rambam distinguishes between those two, right? Acts of active danger are a biblical prohibition / rabbinic derivations of a biblical prohibition, but maintaining a general lifestyle doesn't have a pasuk. It's just like logically binding because you need to be healthy in order to live a life committed to Hashem. If you're not healthy, you won't be able to. And there's this generic value. But like I said, that's really a broader issue. Yeah, you know.
I was just say like smoking is like.
Smoking is a classic case of this, right? Is it usher? Is it usher to be a smoker but not to smoke a single cigarette? Is there a difference between cigarettes and cigars because the culture of cigars are not to have it on a consistent basis but once in a while, and therefore the health risk, right? All those are questions you could ask, right? Obviously there are many poskim who say smoking is usher because it's unhealthy. There are poskim who say no, being a smoker is usher, right? But like maybe you can't necessarily point to a particular act which is prohibited.
Yourselves, like it could be like if you have like kids and you're smoking and like it affects them, like you're hurting yourself and other people. So
Correct, which is obviously, related to that. What can you right? Say, I am opposed to smoking very, 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 very strongly. But right, the exact formulation you want to get halachically is I think you have to work on the.
Who like say it's okay to like be a smoker.
So there were poskim who thought that before it was unhealthy, and not everyone has retracted. Let's put it that way. I would tend with the poskim who say, no, this is really bad. I can hear an argument to say that you can't be a smoker, but some people will have it. Like I know certain people that only have like one cigar on Purim. Can I say that's usher? What is the health risks of having one cigar? What?
Aren't cigars?
Don't ask me why they do this. It's unclear to me why, but I know people who do this.
Different than cigarettes, though. Like cigarettes, you smoke like a pat. Like,
No, that's exactly the point. That some people will do like one cigar once a year. Like, can I say that's usher? I don't know, right? I mean, does that actually have any health risks associated with it? I highly doubt it, right? Meaning, or so minimal. So I could hear an argument like that. But yes, that would be a topic within that. But like I said, that's sort of a separate standing issue. But if it turns out that GMO is like grossly unhealthy, and every time you do it you poison yourself, then yeah, you should avoid them. At the moment, the evidence doesn't point in that direction. But again, if it did, that's an external thing. It's the same problem. I remember being at Ray Willig's once for Shabbos, and Ray Willig was giving a sikha to his shul, and he really doesn't hold back. And he got up there and he's like, "Look, I'll be honest, I really don't know." He's like, "I am on the VOD of Riverdale, but I really don't know why we give a hashgacha to Dunkin' Donuts because I can't really think of a heter of giving a hechsher to something this unhealthy." He meant that a little bit polemically, but his point, then he went on to tell the people in the shul, look, you have to exercise. That's also halacha. You should have an apple a day. You should have your Cheerios for breakfast. Or he went on and he's like, this is a problem in the frum community. He really, stands behind us, meaning he's in his mid-70s and, very much insists that he walks up the 5 flights of stairs to his office and eats very healthy. And as I told one of my students, he once gave us all a bracha. He's like, my minhag has been that I wear my wedding suit every Yom Kippur, and I give you a bracha that 50 and 60 years after your wedding, you still fit into your wedding suit. Right? He very much stands by what he says, but that's health. The other one, and again, is that there is another outside issue, which is that there are certain people, for whatever reason, their conviction that it's unhealthy, or their ethical concerns with playing with nature, whatever, they don't want to be consuming genetically modified foods. So because of that, the obligations that are related to honest business would dictate that you have to
tell someone.
Tell someone, label it. If there are people who really care, you have to tell them. Right? Again, even if you think it's ridiculous, the fact that people care, you can't lie to them. Right? This is, again, a different sugya. This is Gneva Dat. These are real sugyas in Chulin. But again, that's not really a GMO sugya. The fact that people care about it means that, and really want to avoid it, so you can't tell them it's not genetically modified when it is. But again, those are external concerns. But the two main local concerns, as I said, are one, is this a problem of kilayim? And two is, what are the halachic implications for kashrut when you have modified an organism to the point where it may now have kosher signs when it is not a kosher species, or vice versa, and is there a difference between animals, birds, and fish in that regard? So why don't we do it this way? Let's break this into two. Since there are two main topics, let's break this into two. Let's start with the first question, the Kilayim question. Let's take 15 minutes and try to get to number 9. Try to get to number 9. 10 and 11 we've already seen, but let's try to get through 1 through 9. Let's take 15 minutes. I put the translation for the more complicated Gemara. Let's try that. Okay. Okay. So as to question 1. So the first question is: are we talking about a problem of kilayim? So let's just look at the pasuk. The pasuk tells you at chukotai tishmoru bem techalot arbiya kilayim shat chalot tizra kilayim uveged kilayim shatnez lo yala alecha. The pasuk outlines 3 different types of kilayim. What are they? Right.
Clothes and animals.
Yeah. Sorry. Go up. Right. So it's clothing. Right, which is don't wear these clothing, or it doesn't matter who made them, and then it's don't create these crossbreeds either by planting together in the field or by making by crossbreeding animals. Okay, so right off the bat, if we had just seen that, so what would you have said? Would you say that? Let's say taking genetic material from one animal, putting it in another animal, or from one plant, putting it in another plant, or one animal to plant, what would you think? Is that a violation of this cross-breeding prohibition?
Wait, we're talking Kilayim, or don't crossbreed animals, don't wear this clothing,
and don't plant multiple species together in the same field. Also, crossbreeding plants is similar. So what would you say? Is this genetic? Right. Mixing, is that kilayim? What would you say?
Well, considering the fact that you said mixing, this genetic mixing, would that be considered kilayim? I'm going to go with no.
Right. So you could say no, because you could say look. Right, well, let's outline what it would depend on. Right. If you would say no, you would say look. The Torah prohibited certain acts, which is crossbreeding. It didn't necessarily prohibit certain results, right? Not necessarily creating a hybrid type of animal. That's not what it said. It said don't crossbreed. There are certain acts that you can't do, but things that might accomplish similar goals are not prohibited. Alternatively, you would say no. The prohibition here is to mix animals or plants in a certain way that you create some sort of crossbreed, and it doesn't really matter how you do it. Genetically, the old-fashioned way, it doesn't really matter. So that's really the machloket. Now, what evidence do we have? So if you look at number 3, the Gemara tells a story. So what story did the Gemara tell? Who wants to? Yeah?
I'll read.
Okay, go ahead.
In Hebrew or English?
Whatever you want, or you can tell it to me outside.
Oh, okay. So basically they're talking about, how do they actually do it if you were to, actually mix things. And so Rabbi Yehuda said, they made this, mixture and they put it into, the core of the palm tree, after heating it up, which is kind of similar to practices.
Good. So in the time of the Mishnah, I didn't give you the translation of the whole thing, but if you look at the Mishnah had said that the people of Yericho did 6 things, 3 of which the Chachamim didn't protest, and 3 of which they did protest. One of those that they didn't protest was this, right, as I put it here, was that they would create this grafting. They would bring myrtle and beer from the fruit of the laurel tree and barley flour, put them in a vessel, for 40 days. They would boil it and put it into the palm tree, and they would pour it on the other trees, and the other trees would wither, and these trees would not. And the Mishnah had said that this is one of the things that the Chachamim were okay with. So it sounds like, descriptively, that mixing, not in the classic way, right? Not actually grafting, which is a problem from one species onto another. That is a problem. That is under the prohibition of kilayim. That's called harkava. That's called something which is morkav, which is grafted. But this similar equivalent of it seems to be not like that. So this Gemara points in the direction that maybe the prohibition is very specifically these actions, but not mixing genetic material. That is not going to be problematic. Now, if you look at the Mishnah in Kilayim, the Mishnah says, "Ein levin ilan be'ilan, yerek be'yerek velo ilan be'yerek velo yerek be'ilan." you can't actually graft from a tree to a tree, from a vegetable to a vegetable, vegetable to plant, tree to vegetable. But Rabbi Yehuda matir yerek be'ilan. Rabbi Yehuda allows a vegetable by an ilan. So this is the Mishnah that tells you that actually grafting would be prohibited. And if you look at the Tosafot Yom Tov there, the Tosafot Yom Tov says, "V'hainu shusoveri the dafka kshal yidei harakava hein mitachin v'nasal yidei pri o yerek mishuneh v'hu asrator mishum kilayim." The Tosafot Yom Tov says, why does Rabbi Yehuda think that you're allowed to have a vegetable put on a tree? So he says, because Rabbi Yehuda thinks that the only time this grafting prohibition is usher is when you actually graft, and now you create a new vegetable. V'zeudavka b'ilan, v'ilan o yerek b'yerek. That's only tree to tree or vegetable to vegetable. Yerek v'ilan she'ena mit'achin leishtanot. V'lasot yerek o pri acher, af al pi sheyonkim zeh mizeh lo asra Torah. But a tree and a vegetable will not actually produce a new type of species. They'll just get nutrients from each other, and therefore he thought it was not a problem. Now, according to the Tosafot Yom Tov, though, what would you say? Right? You could read it and say the only time it's not a problem is if it doesn't create a new species. But maybe he would hold that if I actually created a new species, that would be a problem. Now, in the case in Psachim, you would say, well, maybe there they weren't creating a new species, they were creating a super species. Right? They were just giving strength to this, but they weren't really creating a new species, and that's why it's permitted. But maybe you could derive from the Tosafot Yom Tov that would you actually create a new species, that this would indeed be similar to Kilayim. So if you look at how the poskim actually develop it, so that the posek who deals with most extensively is Rav Bakshi Daron in a series of Shuvot, and that's what you have here in number 6. So let's see what he says. Rav Bakshi Daron, he was the chief rabbi of Israel in the 80s, I think. He says, "Ha'she'elah harishona ha'oleh me'eleh." Well, look at the title actually. Ha'im yesh isur b'handasa genetit mishum kilayim. Is there a prohibition of kilayim by genetic engineering? And handasa is engineering. If you ever need that word, it's a popular profession in this country. Handasa is engineering. Okay. Ha'she'elah harishona ha'oleh me'eleh. This is the first question, which is obvious. Im ein isur b'yitzur gidulim murkavim minim shonim b'handasa genetit mishum isur kilayim. Sharei HaTorah asra l'arkiv l'zrot tzmachim minim shonim hayotrim zan me'urav min b'sheino mino. Isur kilayim b'Yisrael b'ilanot u'balei chaim sh'atzra Torah u'maaseh achla v'lo b'totzotav. Right, he says, the question is as follows. Is there a prohibition? Why wouldn't there be a prohibition? Because maybe the only thing that's prohibited is planting things in the same field. Right? That's the classic kilayim. Or grafting. The act, but not the results. Except for kilayim kerem, which is a little bit different. And you say maybe it's just the act, actually grafting from a tree onto a tree, or planting them together. But by genetic engineering, either you use bacteria, right, as we saw with CRISPR, use bacteria to rewrite genetic material. That's not what he's talking about quite yet, but that's how he's describing it. Or you put genetic material in with a shot. Again, whatever. That's how he's describing it. And he said, what's the fundamental difference? Why would I say these aren't the same? Because of the following. When I graft on trees, I'm taking two things that exist in a halachically significant way, and I'm combining them. Genetic material by itself is nothing. Right? Halachically, it just doesn't exist. It doesn't do anything. So maybe you would argue, and he said, you're allowed to water plants, right? You're allowed to give it fertilizer. So maybe genetic material is just super watering or super fertilizing. But it's not the act of kilayim because you're not actually, right, doing the acts described in the Torah. You're not grafting. And he says, even if the material you're putting in is not fertilizer, it's actually from another plant, still, halachically, we may conceptualize this as no more than encouraging something to grow. And what's his proof that he thinks it's mutter? the Gemara in Pesachim, where clearly there they were putting some sort of early genetic material in, and he says, what I learned from this Gemara is that, in fact, the issue of kilayim, of grafting and crossbreeding, is only when you take a tree, you graft it into another tree, a vegetable to another vegetable, but if you just play on the genetic level, so then halachically we conceptualize this as just helping it grow better, and therefore it is not prohibited. And that is the position of Rav Bakshi Doron. If you look at the Chazon Ish in number 7, this is on the other side, so it is a little bit harder to read. He says, "V'hinei lobmanu shlosha chilukot." Right, chalukot. There are 3 divisions. Im markiv davar she'ein somech ela shehi nivla ba'ilan umeitiv tzmichat ha'ilan mutar. If you graft something that cannot grow by itself, it just helps the new plant. So again, he thinks that's permitted. V'hainu damar b'psachim nun vav nenin Now that's the Gemara in Pesachim. So he said, first category, if you put genetic material in that cannot exist by itself, right, as opposed to by grafting a tree, so what we learned from the Gemara in Pesachim is that doesn't count. It's just viewed conceptually because the genetic material can't exist by itself, can't grow by itself. It's like fertilizer. Next paragraph. Yesh markiv shemedachin umolidin min chadash. He says, however, if you graft in such a way that it creates something new, or even if it doesn't create something new, but they do combine in some way, that is asur. And therefore he says, Nira de'ein chiluk bar kava bein markiv guf le'markiv sraf. She'im something sraf and it new bistak v'chozer v'oseh anaf me'ato asraf ariza markiv gamur. She'ein beinehem chiluk bein ha'av v'keven she'is b'sraf kochal adach hashuv hakava. So, but he says, if by putting this material, it's now going to it's going to make the tree produce something new, so then it's usher. So he says, look, if you put something in, and all it does is create the same fruit, it's just grows better, so that we learn from the Gemara in Pesachim, that's not called kilayim. But if you put in genetic material and it causes a new type of fruit to grow on the tree, so he says, in that sense, we look at the result, right? He looks more result-oriented. And he says, look, if it leaves the apple an apple, it just helps it grow better, but it's still an apple, so it's fine. But if it creates a nectarine, right, you join material of 2 fruit, and you get a new fruit, so then that is, in fact, asur. And if you look at Rishon Zalman Auerbach, in number 8, Binyan shilato b'davar handasa genetit, shemachnisim chalkikei te'im mi bria achad l'shniya. By genetic engineering, where you take one cell, you put it into another. Uvazeh mishanim et tchunotea shel hashniya. V'yidei zeh lahatir isur kilayim mechevan, she'ein chalkikim elu maybe, or chalkikim elu nirim la'ein adam. Kevan she'anashim mitaplim chim ha'elu mavirim otam mimin echad l'sheni, harizah chashiv mamash kanireh la'einayim. He says that argument that this isn't seen to the eyes, so halachically it isn't significant, and therefore it's not kilayim. He says I don't buy it. You know why? Because you have genetic engineers. They're doing this for a reason. It's significant. Don't tell me it's not important because you can't see it with the naked eye. No, you have genetic engineers doing it. Clearly, this is halachic. This is significant. V'lo dami klal l'tolayim she'inam nirim. Amnam bebalei chayim nireh lefi nadi de'ein be'etzem matziyah shum isar shel arba'a keven shezeh rak al yidei harava chomer mimin echad toch min bal chay acher rak v'argavat eitzim nireh deshabir asur apim rakava hi rak al yidei zrika shamitz asher me'ezoreh amitz b'adama lo tzomech klal ki sof sof hasadeh zruah mishnei minim ma she'en gein b'arba'a re'et Torah amra behemtecha ve'ein zu behemtecha ve'ein zeh shayach klal isur arba'a d'asra rak shtei gufot mamash. I'll say that outside. I read it quickly. Shlomo Zalman says, look, here's my claim. When it comes to plants, I think the prohibition is result-oriented. And therefore, creating a new species through genetic engineering of plants, he thinks is not good. But when it comes to animals, he thinks that the prohibition is to crossbreed. And this is not crossbreeding. So creating a new animal through genetic engineering, he thinks is not prohibited. because the isser of crossbreeding by animals is framed as harva'ah, the act of crossbreeding, as opposed to by vegetables or by plants, the prohibition is framed as don't make your field crossbred, right? It's result-oriented. And therefore, Bakshi Daron thinks it's mutter, Shlomo Zalman thinks it is usur. Yeah.
So he's saying that it's the act of crossbreeding animals, not the fact that there's a new
Correct.
animal that is crossbred, and that's why when it comes to, let's say, like foods and vegetables, it's
So by
okay.
no, by vegetables he thinks it's not okay, because he thinks by vegetables the act is is the result, right? Because he says
The act to result also
so his diuk is as follows. In the psukim it says your animal don't lo tarbiyah, is don't crossbreed, but by the sadeh he thinks it shall not be grown as kilayim. That's how he's conceptualizing it. So
the vegetables is more focused on the result.
correct. That's how he understands it. Now, I'll note that Akiva Wolf has an article in number 9 where he claims that even to the extent that the Chazon Ish and Rosh Zalman see this as a problem, maybe they only think it's a problem with the original genetic material. But if you're not dealing with the original genetic material, because what's Rosh Zalman's argument? If I actually put in the genetic material, so it's a problem. But if I create a mimic of that, right, or I at some point had the original genetic material, but now what I'm using is not in any way, shape, or form from the animal, so that he assumes is permitted. So it may be that Rosh Zalman is only talking about a problem with that first original material. If I'm actually taking material from one plant, putting another. But if I am mimicking that, or I've created it, and now I'm dealing with, several generations later of genetic material, now this is not genetic material which came, right? Now it's halachically just like making it grow better. So therefore, he argues that maybe even the people who prohibit it only prohibit when you're using the original genetic material. But once you're dealing with just genetic material several stages later, it would be permitted. But that's basically the three perspectives you have. It's usur because it's result-oriented, at least by plants, maybe not by animals. It's permitted because even by plants, the only prohibition is to crossbreed. Or maybe you distinguish between first and second generation, so to speak, of the genetic material. Yeah.
So talking about result versus act, is the prohibition that you're not allowed to crossbreed things, either plants or animals, or that like if it's already done, you can't eat it?
Good, so that's the next point. So let's do that right now. So 10 and 11 I'm not going to read again. 10 and 11 was, what we just dealt with a very quick version of the halachic question. Then there's the hashkafic question, which is, even if it's technically not a prohibition, maybe this is a problem of playing God. But as we've talked about, Rashi doesn't think the problem here is playing God. He thinks it's a gzeirat hakasuv. This is a chok, and therefore it should only be prohibited if it actually violates the letter of the law. There is no spiritual law. It's a chok. The Ramban thinks it's about playing God, so maybe he would say it's problematic. We'll skip that. But let's say it happened. Right? Let's say you think it is prohibited to create a nectarine. Right? A nectarine is, right? Am I right on that? Nectarine is an orange and a... Right? Is a peach and plum? Is that what it is? Peach and plum? Nectarine is a peach and a plum, and I think I forget which one's it, but yeah, I think you're right. A peach and a plum create a nectarine. So is it usher to eat it? So there the answer. So look at 12. So first of all, there's a machloket, a stira really within Rambam as to whether even if it is usher for a Jew to create, let's say, a nectarine. Is it usher for a non-Jew to do it? Let's say you're actually doing it through grafting. Okay? So, the Gemara has a machloket about this in number 12. The Halacha Kilayim. The Gemara in Sanhedrin is talking about the prohibitions of non-Jews. Rabbi Elazar has a position that non-Jews are prohibited in Kilayim. But he says, Mutar me'ach levosh kilayim. That doesn't mean they can't wear shatnez. They can. V'zroa kilayim. And they can grow multiple species in the same field. But, but grafting and crossbreeding itself Elazar thinks
Nectarines are
that.
not genetically mutated. They're just kashrut. They're not.
Okay, then I forget which one it is that is. No, what is it?
Pluot.
What?
Pluot.
Sure, a pluot. There you go.
Isn't it the non-Jew can't do the action but can benefit from the result?
Well, one second. So, no, it's just a different form. According to Elazar, wearing kilayim and kilayim field is mutter, but the crossbreeding of or grafting, that he's prohibited. So, do we paskin this way? So, look at 14. In 14, it seems like we don't. Because the Rambam says, Al Shisha Dvar Mitzav Adam Arishon, there were 6 things that Adam was prohibited in. Al Avodah Zarah, Al Birkat Hashem, Shvichas Dam, Gil Arayt, Al Gezav, Al Adinim. Idolatry, blasphemy, murder, sexual immorality, theft, and he has to set up courts. Afal Pi Shekulu Hin Kabbalah B'Din Moshe Rabbeinu, Vadat Notland, these are from Moshe, they're logical, Miklal Devei Torah Yeresh, Al Elon Itzavu. Hostiv L'Noach Avram and Achai Shneimar Ach Basar B'Nafsho Damo Lo Terchilu Nimtza Sheva Mitzvot. And Noach got another one: don't eat live animals. But if you look in 13, the Rambam says Mibia Kabbalah Shebnei Noach Ashrun Baravad Behema Barkavat Ilan Bilvad Veina Regan Alein. But in 13, the Rambam says we know from tradition that non-Jews are prohibited in grafting and crossbreeding. So there's this contradiction in the Rambam. Whether non-Jews are allowed to do it. Shulchan Aruch is actually machmir. In 15, Asur l'zroa kilayim lovei kochavim. But the Shach says that this is only for a Jew to tell a non-Jew to do it. Katvu atam mishum amira lovei kochavim shvut. We don't paskin like the Rambam, v'chein ikar. Which the Shach notes that, one second, that the Bach and the Beit Yosef think that we don't think that non-Jews can't create kilayim. We just think that a Jew can't tell them to do it. The Drisha thinks we actually paskin the Chumrah like the other Rambam that they can't do it. Yeah.
But how can we tell non-Jews not to do it? Like,
Meaning?
In the sense that, like, how can we, like...
I mean, they may not listen to us. That's a broader question, is are we supposed to impose or educate about the Sheva Mitzvah Noach? But if we think that they can't do it, that means we have to deal...
But these are not part of the Sheva Mitzvah Noach.
Well, according to Rambam, it is. Right? In one place. In one place it is, in one place it isn't. That's the problem. So the Drisha thinks we actually paskin the Chumrah. The Shach thinks that no, we only think that Jews can't tell them to do it, but we can, and he notes that this is the contradiction, but he thinks that we paskin that it is mutter. So, I didn't put the sources here, but, so one question is, can non-Jews do it? Which we see there's a machloket, but the consensus seems to be yes, they can. The next question is, can we benefit from it? So there's no machloket. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. That if it is created, there is no prohibition on eating it. So, wrapping up section 1, we saw machloket about whether it is prohibited to create these cross species. Rav Bakshi Doron says no. Rav Shlomo Zalman says yes. Akiva Wolf says maybe only first generation, but once you're dealing with just genetic material, it's fine. We said maybe you have to deal with the spirit of the law, the playing God thing, even if it's technically mutter, which is something we've dealt with in the past. And then question 3 was, okay, is it problematic for non-Jews? Machloket. But probably not. And fourth question is, if non-Jews made it, can we benefit from it? There the answer is yes. The only time that gets a little bit complicated is with grapes, because grapes actually has a potential of Isra Hana when it's created, but in general, even if Kilayim was violated, the resulting created fruit is permitted, and therefore, even if it was created by, even if you think it's prohibited to have been created, you are allowed to benefit from it. Okay, so that is halachic question number 1. Halachic question number 2. What is the kashrus question, right? It's not about the genetic engineering per se, but is, what if I've created a different species or an animal with different simanim, is it kosher? So let me outline the question. Let's take 10 more minutes for chavrusa maybe, and then we'll wrap that up. So here's a nice summary from Tzvi Heber of the COR in Toronto. After 2 decades of exhaustive and rigorous review, the United States Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, has recently approved the first ever genetically engineered food animal, a fast-growing Atlantic salmon called Aqua Advantage salmon. Likewise, in May of 2016, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, the CFIA, also approved the sale of the Aqua Advantage salmon. These Atlantic salmon are genetically modified to carry a growth hormone-regulated gene from a Pacific Chinook salmon, which is further engineered to be under the control of an antifreeze protein gene called a promoter from the eel-like ocean poutfish. The genetic modification allows the salmon to grow year-round by increasing natural production of the growth hormone and reducing sensitivity to the cold, all without affecting its ultimate size or other qualities. The fish is said to grow to market size in 16 to 18 months, rather than the 3 years that normally takes Atlantic salmon to mature. The FDA has concluded the food made from Aqua Advantage salmon is as safe as food from other Atlantic salmon. The law does not require food containing ingredients derived from Aqua Advantage salmon to be labeled as genetically modified. While both Atlantic salmon and Pacific Chinook salmon are inherently kosher, the eel-like ocean pout is obviously not. So question 1 in halacha is this kosher? The second question, as he said, is, okay, right, sorry, I should have divided this. So kosher is really 2 questions, right? One is it kosher if I've added genetic material from a non-kosher animal? Question 1, and then question 2 is if I add or remove scales, right? I create a salmon that now doesn't have scales and fish. Is it kosher? Does it come down to species, or does it come down to whether it actually has the simanim? So source 18 and 19 is the question of if I take the genetic material of a non-kosher animal, right? Like one gene from a non-kosher animal and put it into a kosher animal, right? It's still basically a salmon. It just is cold resistant because of the eel. Is that kosher? That's 18 and 19. And then 20 and on is the question of if I create a salmon that doesn't have fins and scales, or I create an eel that does have fins and scales, is it kosher? So let's take another 10, 15 minutes and for chavrusa, and then we will run through the summary of those issues. Okay. Okay. So let's deal with the first question. The first question: if you introduce genetic material from a non-kosher animal into a kosher animal, so does that make it not kosher? Right. Basically, you're dealing with a tomato. It's still a tomato. It just is resistant to cold. So here, the poskim are pretty convinced that it is makil. The short version of that is what Reganak says in number 19. Reganak is the CEO of OU Kosher, and he just puts it very succinctly. They've taken the gene of either a pig or a turkey, and with it they've enhanced this tomato. The OU's position is, and I think also those of other kosher agencies, is that this is indeed a kosher tomato. If you want the long form of that, so if you look at Rav Bakshi Doron 18, he says, "Be'im avirim b'handasa genetic genim shel balei chayim ha'asurim b'achila lebalei chayim mutarim utzmachim v'red bayot kashrut ma'achilim." When you move genetic material from a non-kosher animal to a kosher one, b'derech klal ha'genim ha'mavrim einam machilim. The genes in question are usually not edible. Ein bahem tam. They have no taste. And along the way, they have become completely inedible to a dog, which is the lower standard of food in halacha. And there's less than a 60th that you put in the food. So in terms of actual halachic material, it is not a problem. And even things that are not just asur of 1 in 60, but like chametz, which is asur no matter what you have, this is not actual food. This is genetic material from chametz, so it's fine. The gene is not considered food. He said, the one thing you might ask is, what if the genetic material you take changes the taste so that in the new food you can taste it? Is that a problem? Not because of bittul, but because, right, it is now, right, it's not batel because you taste it. מגוון הצמחי שיש לנו מטעם איסור מעמיד, או הגבינות מייצרים מהידי המדע בקיבת עגלים, right? Things like cheese that are made with rennet from certain animals. שיש בו חומר מפריד החלב ומחלב גבינה, לצורך זה ישתמשו בקיבת עגלים כשרים בלבד. בהנדסה גנטית מפיקים את הגן המיוחד שבקיבת העגלים, מקדים לו בעובד של תרבית צמחית, משכפלים אותו, ומפיקים מגוון צמחי שמקורו הראשון הוא הגן המופק מהעגלים. Right, so you can make rennet now from an animal, produce it, duplicate it. ובזה יש לדון איסור לגבינה, כיוון שמקורבון הוא הגן המופקים מהעגלים שאינם כשרים. So let's say you got the rennet from a not kosher animal, so then what would you do? גם אם נתבטלו, because there it's either the taste is significant or it actually enables you to make the cheese. So hashpa'atam nikeret k'ma'amid she'enu batel. Their influence is recognizable, which is a halachic status called ma'amid. That's something which gives the texture and allows the food to exist in its form, can never be nullified. Ulam hagenim sheshpiu al givun hachalav savir she'enam kayavim klal. Hem rak palu ad bula rishona ve'ena kayamim bagvina. But he says even there I think it's mutter because you're not dealing with the original gene, right? You're dealing with these genetic duplications. And that's what's doing it. Agibun lo nosaraka yidei agenim ela betalich mishutav shel mifgash bein markivim, and the result is a combination of the genetic material with the original material. V'yesh betalich zeh mishum zeh v'zeh goreim, and all these super machmir halachot, that things that you recognize the taste or are ma'amid, that give it its structure. When the structure is created by more than one factor, so we apply normal rules of bittul. Vayisor enogorim yachiv enogorim yashir. So it's indirect and it doesn't cause the result by itself. Kach shein lachshosh leisur mishum ma'amid. Achim ein markiv esor b'taviyot milvad agenim, etc. Said under most circumstances, you're talking about duplicated genetic material that only functions in conjunction with the old genetic material, and therefore he thinks it is not a problem. The only thing that he thinks is a problem, possibly, is where the genetic material is created from food which is usher b'hana'ah. Right? It's not just usher to eat, it's not prohibited to eat, but it's usher to benefit from. Because if usher to benefit from, so then you would say, look, the resulting product has benefited from that. So if it was, let's say, from meat and milk, so then it might be prohibited. But if it comes from a pig, or something like that, so the consensus of poskim is taking one gene from a pig and using it to change the way a tomato grows is still kosher. And that seems to be the consensus of poskim. Okay, what about the next question? Making a salmon which has no fish and scales, or making an eel that has fish and scales? So what do you say? So the halachic question, as I've said it several times, in Lumdish language we would call it siman or siba, meaning, in English, causation or correlation. Meaning, does the fact that something has fins and scales, is that what causes it to be kosher? Siba, right? It's causative. Or siman, it correlates with the kosher species. It's an indication that the species is kosher. But if you had a salmon without fins and scales, it would be kosher. And if you had an eel with fins and scales, it wouldn't be kosher, right? That's the conceptual question that we have. So I gave you the psukim in number 20. For time, we won't read it inside, but you know them, right? Animals need to chew their cud and have split hooves. Birds, we just get a list. And fish and scales. So, what? Fins and scales, thank you. Fins and scales, thank you. Okay, so how do we conceptualize these? So if you look at the Mishnah in 21, the Mishnah in Bechorot says, Para she'yalda kimin chamor. Right, the Mishnah there has a series of very weird cases which may shed light on this. Let's say a cow gives birth to a donkey. The chamor she'yalda kimin sus. Or a donkey gives birth to a horse. So, are they chayav in the topic there is pidyon peter chamor. Right? Kosher animals need to be redeemed. The firstborn kosher animals need to be redeemed. And firstborn donkeys need to be redeemed in halacha. So what if you have a donkey born of a cow, which does not have to be redeemed, right? Sheep have to be redeemed, or a horse is born from a donkey. So shneimar, it's patur. Shneimar peter chamor shnei pamim ad she'avlad chamor vanolad chamor. There's a special gzerat katuv when it comes to the donkey. It needs to be a donkey, the child of a donkey. Umahem ba'achila. So question one is, redeeming. Question 2 is eating. So, behemat te'orah she'al dakimin behemat tme'ah mutar. If a kosher animal gives birth to a non-kosher animal, again, did they actually think it gave birth to a non-kosher animal, or they thought it gave birth to something which looks like a non-kosher animal? I don't know. But the Mishnah says, permit it. Utme'ah she'al dakimin behemat te'orah. If a non-kosher animal gives birth to a kosher animal, asur b'achila. Sha'yotzei me'atamei tamei va'yotzei min tahor tahor. Because that which comes from a kosher animal is kosher, that which comes from a non-kosher animal is not kosher. So, if you just read that, when it comes to animals, what would you say? Are the simanim important, or is the species important? The species. It sounds like the species. That's what the principle of a yotzei min hatamei seems to tell us. Dag tamei shebala dag tahor mutar ba'achila. If a kosher fish swallows if a non-kosher fish swallows a kosher fish, the kosher fish is still kosher. Okay. But how do we actually take it? Right? The Mishnah sounds like it's about species. But is that true? So look at the Barbanel. The Barbanel 22 says, Ve'ena kavana be'ele hatnaim sheba'avuram tiyah be'imat me'ah ki heim einam osim tara be'atzmam. Aval kavana bazehu shem simanim morim al heyot be'ima hi Torah ve'deram moreh heyot me'ah. These simanim do not make them kosher. Right? They are indications that it is a kosher animal. So the Abramanel very clearly says the issue at hand is species. Not whether it actually has these simanim, but species. The Ragit Shavar, the Safna Paneach in 23, says, Ach be'emet, kach desvir le'el rabbeinu, di'ish nafka mina levein, simanei behema l'simanei of. He says it depends. The gabe behema simanim huatara shalamach magzera rakatuv. He says no. Animals where the Torah gives you simanim, so you actually need to have split hooves and chewing of cud. V'zema damar b'gemara bava batra reiti shor etc. And the same is true of fish. Aval simanei ofot, simanei chaya, legabe chabaz, erak siman, ezu ador ve'ezu chaya. He says by birds, the Gemara gives simanim, but the psukim list species. So, the Barbanel says, fish, animals, birds, the only thing that matters is species. The Rugged Shavar says no. Fish and animals, where the Torah gives you simanim, what matters is, does it have the simanim? When it comes to birds, where the Torah says species, and the Gemara gives you, how you doing? And the Gemara does the simanim, there it's about, so by birds it's species, by fish and animals it is the existence of simanim. So, based on this, according to the Barbanel, a salmon which is genetically engineered to not have fish and scales, kosher or not kosher? According to Barbanel, kosher. According to the Rugged Shavar, salmon that doesn't have fish and scales? Not kosher. What about a chicken which becomes a bird of prey? According to the Barbanel, still kosher. Right? Because all the simanim of talons and things like that, by birds it doesn't really matter, it's really about species. But by animals and fish, he thinks it's the existence of those simanim. Okay. Now this machloket seems to be not just, Barbanel and Safna Paneach, but it seems to be a contradiction in Tosfot. So if you skip, I'll skip Rosh Zalman for now. You look at 25, the Gemara in Chulin, the Gemara says, Amar Abaye, Tarnagola de Agma Chad Mishon Esvekotu Vahainu Merdo. Look at the second line. Amar Papa Tarnagola de Agma, a chicken of the swamp Asira. Tarnagolta de Agma, a rooster, a male chicken of the swamp is prohibited. Tarnagolta de Agma, but the chicken, the female, is kosher, sharia. So Tosfot says, Ein lefaresha nekeva muter v'zachar asur. You can't have it. You can't literally mean that the female is permitted and the male is prohibited. To call a yotzim and tahor tahor, because we know it's about species. Anything which comes from kosher is kosher. Anything which comes from not kosher is not kosher. Ela shnei minim heim akruim kach uvein bazeh vein bazeh zachar v'nekeva shavin. Even though you call them the chicken, these are actually different species. Right? These aren't the male and female of one species. The tarnagol, the agama, is one species. The tarnagolta is another species. And everything is about species. That's how Tosfot in Chulin understands it. But Tosfot in Nida understands it as follows. Hazachar asur levi she'ein lo simanei tahara.
Wait, so what conclusion does he reach because of the species that you're...
Right? I mean, he just says, look, yes, it calls it male and female. That doesn't mean the male and female of one species. If the species is kosher, it's kosher, male and female. If the species is not kosher, it's not kosher. What it must mean is that the Tarnagola da'agma is a species called the rooster of the swamp, and the Tarnagolta is the chicken of the swamp. But those are different species. It's not really about male and female in the same species, because it's always about species. But Tosfot in Nida says not that way. He says, Hazachar asur, lefi she'ein lo simanei tahara, v'lo sharim itam kol yotzim min ha'tahor, she're'im lo yadav froach el beitzim itila. He says, no, it is about simanim. It is about simanim, and now this is even more expansive than the rugged shaver, because he says this is true even by birds. Even by birds it's about simanim. And then he says, well, what about the rule that anything that comes from something which is kosher, and anything which comes from something which is not kosher is not kosher? He says, that's true by animals, it's not true by birds. Because by birds, they aren't born like mammals, directly from the mother. They're born in an egg, and therefore it's what? Okay, good. So you'd say maybe by fish this would be true as well. And he says, therefore, halachically, it's not considered. It doesn't adopt the kashrus or not kashrus of the mother. You have to look at the simanim. So according to Tosfot, by birds, is it about species or the simanim that the Gemara says, even though they're not in the Torah? Even by birds, the second Tosfot says it's by simanim. So now we have three possibilities. We have the possibility that by all animals is by species, Dibar Benel. That by fish and animals where the Torah says it's about simanim, but by birds it's about species. And now you have Tosfot who says, no, even by birds it's about the simanim, because they can't adopt, or Tosfot in Nida, because they can't adopt the species kashrus or lack of kashrus, because it's too separated from the mother. And again, the conceptual question, as we've said, is what the Kovach Yurim Elchanan Wasserman summarizes 28, which is Hine yesh lachgor b'simanei tuma v'tahara she'amra Torah im hasimanim atzmam im gormim atuma v'tahara o she'enam ela simanim alamin. Right. The big question in all these is: are the simanim what makes it kosher, or what they indicate that it's a kosher species? So how do we paskin? So, if you look at Shulchan Aruch in 29, Efroach shenolad mi beitza nevelau treifa mutar. A chick which is born from the egg of a non-kosher, kosher species, but a non-kosher animal is mutar, which again indicates that the fact that we think that a bird born of a non-kosher animal but of a kosher species is kosher points in the direction that the consensus view is that at least by birds, not like Tosfot, it's about species. But the Ramah notes, but the Ramah says, some people say that the birds born, the egg born from a non-kosher mother, even if it's a kosher species, is not kosher, and you should be machmer lechatchila, which pushes in the Tosfos direction, that it's not about species, it's about actual kashrus. But the Shach says, what are you talking about? It's against the Gemara, right? Very nice that Ramah wants to be machmir, but this is really against consensus. V'yafek even the malan ulachmir v'davar shenimtza mifurash mifurash latir b'shas v'chol poskim. He says this is just wrong. I mean, it's a very nice chumrah, but this is against the simple read of the Gemara. You're allowed to have chickens. What? 30. Jacques says it's very nice that Ramah wants to be machmir, but this is against the simple read of Shas. We have 10 minutes left, so Look at the Rambam in 31. Efrach shenolad mi beitzat treifa mutar she'ein b'mino tamei. Haya ov safek treifa kol beitzim shel barima rishona mashienotan. Okay, let's see. We have 10 minutes, so let's. Okay, let's see. Okay, yeah, let's try this. Okay, so the Rambam says, a chick born from a treif bird, meaning one that's going to die within 12 months, mutar, it's still permitted, she'ein mino tameh, because it is a kosher species. Haya ha'ov safek treifa, if the bird is a safek treifa, ve'treva kol beitzim she'lemere, ema rishona mashino, tanim ta'ana re'ema shniya, v'tchilu le'leidu tru rishonot. Do we have time for this? I'm not sure we have time for this. Okay, let me give away the bottom line, and then maybe we'll get back into 32 through 34. But we've outlined the basic question. So look at 35, where I just summarize it for you. Rav Bakshi, Daron, Rosh Zalman Auerbach assume that for fish and animals, the simanim are indicators of the species, and therefore genetic engineering cannot affect that. And additionally, even non-kosher genes are considered insignificant, except perhaps in cases of Isurei Hana'ah. That's what we saw. And Lehalacha, the OU, the COR, most of the kosher organizations assume, like the Abarbanel, that even for animals, even for fish, the issue is species. And therefore, and they think that with the exception possibly of genetic material taken for something which is usher in benefit, we're always going to say that a salmon is a salmon is a salmon. And it doesn't matter what you do to it. And most poskim assume, not like Tosfot, that by birds, where the Torah doesn't give you simanim, the Torah gives you a list of species, that by birds it's definitely about the species. Though there could be outlying positions that you saw, like in the rugged shaver, where the rugged shaver thinks that by birds it's by species, but by fish and animals it really matters. If you create a cow that doesn't chew its cud, it's not kosher. If you create a pig which chews its cud, it's kosher. You could create that position, but it happens to be that the consensus view at the moment of kosher organizations is like the Barbanel, that by all kashrus, these simanim are only indicators of kosher species, and that is how they paskin. And again, that with the exception of Isur Hana'ah, genes that are put in from non-kosher animals don't change the kashrus. Poskim, who are going to argue, are going to say it's not about species, it's actually about the presence of those simanim, but that is, at the moment at least, the consensus position. Yeah?
The Israel has the same principle as things with plants, that if you, with the salmon, if you add in that antifreeze gene.
Right, so that's where Bakshi Doron says there it might be problematic. But now what would that mean? It would have to mean like I took, because it's result oriented.
It's like that could be like fertilizer that we have for the plants. Like it's not making something new, it's just helping.
Right, so the problem here is that by Isser Hana, it's always result-oriented, right? I'm not allowed to benefit from this. Now, this doesn't usually happen, because non-kosher animals are always mutter b'hana'ah. They're only usher in eating. It's like, what's usher b'hana'ah? Meat and milk. But you're not taking gene from meat and milk. What does that mean? Yeah, right? It would be like maybe grapes that were themselves grown with kilayim, so grapes become asur b'hana. So you could do that, or like wine, or something that was worshipped by avodah zarah. So then, and you took the genetic material from that animal, that would be asur. But how often does this happen? Right there, in theory, Rav Bakshi Doron says, yeah, that would be true. But most things you're not dealing with, right? You're dealing with isur achila or chametz on Pesach. So it's asur b'hana. Again, that's not usually what people are doing. They're taking from wheat. They're not taking from wheat that was turned into bread on Pesach. That's not. So, in theory, they say it could be, but most of the questions that come up halacha l'maisa are these two. Are either, at the moment, it's mostly taking eel genes and putting them in salmon, where everyone really says it's probably fine because it's just like one gene. It doesn't change it. It doesn't change the taste. It changes its ability to deal with cold. That doesn't change it. It's still a salmon. And maybe one day the poskim are saying we might get to the point where we, have salmon without fins and scales, and there the poskim say that's probably mutter, and a pig, even if it chews its cud, is going to be not kosher. Again, the rugged shaver doesn't agree with this. The rugged shaver says by animals you could have a non-kosher pig. You could have a kosher pig which chews its cud, and a non-kosher cow because it doesn't have split hooves. Rabakshi Daron says, no, that's not true. A cow is always going to be kosher, a pig is always going to be not kosher, but that's the machloket there, yeah.
What if instead of just like adding slight modifications to like already existing species, you're taking the genetics of like several different species or like 2 different species, and then you don't even like have a mother. You put in like an artificial womb or
Right. So if you created something which is complete hybrid and has no identity, right? So there you come back to the first question: is that kilayim first of all? Then the kashrut of that, I don't know what you would do with it, right? If it's about species, it's going to be not kosher because it's not a kosher species, right? If you think that kosher species are kosher, this is not like an actively not kosher; it's just a non-kosher species. Definitely by birds, for example, that would be not kosher. By the other things, it would come down to this question. Presumably, if you think about species, it's not kosher. If you think it's about simanim, so if I created something that was completely new, but it had, regardless of whether it was mutter, but it had, split hooves and chuzitz kad, so according to the Ragid Shavar, it would be mutter. According to Rabak Shidaron, maybe not, because it's though you could question that, right? You could say if it's a totally new species, maybe you could say, look, there are kosher species and there are non-kosher species, but a new species is neutral, and then we would rely on simanim and come up with a middle position. I could hear someone doing that, though I don't think they would, but I wouldn't be shocked if someone said it.
Could you make an argument that it's not halachically an animal?
Maybe, but I don't,
Like if you
I don't know.
Like if you make synthetic meat.
So synthetic meat, well, depends. If you make a synthetic animal that then grows and then you kill it, right? I assume it is meat, right? If you make meat in a lab, that is another series of complicated questions, which we can do that also. But that is a independent question because it's related to some of these issues in a certain way. But there, it's a lot. The yotzei menatame and things like that, right? Things which are derivatives. It is related to that, but it is a slightly separate question. Okay. We are out of time, so let us stop there. And that at least is the broad strokes. There are some nuances that you can see if you go through the sources, but we sacrificed getting through everything for Chavrusa time, which I think Dafkan this year was a good thing because it was easily divided. And I know it made Summer happy, so.
Yes.
So, okay.
It made Summer very happy.